The snow had barely crusted the soil when the wagon appeared. More shadow than shape, its wheels creaking like tired bones beneath a sun that gave no warmth. The wind moved slow that evening, brushing across the Callahan ranch like a hand smoothing linen on a deathbed. Rhett Callahan stood on the porch, arms folded, jaw tight. He'd lived through enough winters to know when one brought more than weather. Beside the reins walked two little girls, twins, no taller than the fence post, both wrapped in mismatched coats. And sitting atop a small trunk in the back, barely upright, was a woman who looked like the wind had hollowed her out. Her name, he'd later learn, was Clara May. But in that moment, she was only a stranger with snow in her hair and something fragile in her eyes. Not weakness, no. Something that had been trampled too many times but refused to die. The girls reached the porch first, boots thudding softly against frost-hardened earth. "You need a home," one said with a brave little voice. "And we want a bride for our father," said the other, clutching her sister's hand like a prayer. Rhett blinked. Clara's head lowered, her breath coming out shaky. She hadn't known they would say that. The rancher's eyes, pale gray and unreadable, flicked from them to her. Then, quietly, he turned and opened the door. That night, she slept in the loft above the barn. Not because he told her to, but because she insisted. She wouldn't take his house. Not after arriving in someone else's wagon, someone else's mess. She wasn't sure what she was anymore. Not a wife, not a widow, not a worker. Just a woman who once believed in things she no longer named aloud. Clara May had come from the southern counties, where kindness came in coin and ran out fast. Her husband had died 3 years into a 5-year debt. No children. No kin who wanted her. She worked in kitchens, cleaned out cellars, did what she had to, until she met the twins in a general store on a day when she hadn't eaten. They offered her an apple. She offered them a smile. Somehow, that became a tether. It was Maisie who first whispered, "I wish she was our mama," and Millie who whispered back, "Then let's go find her one." She didn't know they'd followed her. Didn't know they'd hitched a wagon with just enough food for 2 nights and rode it straight to her door. When Rhett found out what they'd done, he didn't yell. He didn't say much of anything. Just sat on the porch that night, hat in hand, looking out at the sky like it held more answers than people ever did. The days that followed were quiet. Clara helped where she could, milking goats, sweeping floors, warming biscuits. She was careful not to take up space. Careful not to smile too long. Careful not to mistake comfort for belonging. Rhett noticed anyway. He noticed how the girls, once restless and half-wild, now sat still when she read. He noticed the way her hands, though calloused, stitched his torn coat with the patience of someone who still believed things could be mended. He noticed how she never asked for anything. Once, he found her chopping firewood with bare hands. No boots. No gloves. When she looked up and saw him watching, she didn't stop. Didn't speak. Just kept chopping. That night, he left his late wife's boots by the barn door. She wore them the next day without a word. In town, folks began whispering. "Widow Callahan's been gone 4 years," someone said. "And now he's got a cook with soft eyes and 2 daughters calling her, ours." Clara heard it. Of course she did. The words stuck to her skin like burrs. She'd worked too hard to be called someone's charity. That evening, she packed her things again. Quietly. Just as she had a dozen times before in other towns, other barns, other nights where she'd been too much, or not enough, or simply in the way. She waited until the girls were asleep. Crept down the ladder. Began tying her satchel. 1 foot in the stirrup. She didn't hear Rhett until his voice broke through the dark. "Going somewhere?" She froze. Her shoulders hunched. She didn't turn around. "I thought maybe I should leave before someone says I should." Silence hung. Then his boots moved across the frost-bitten grass. "You think I'd let whispers tell me what I see with my own eyes?" Clara turned slowly. Her face was streaked with cold and quiet shame. Rhett stepped closer, holding something in his hand, a weathered leather cord with a silver ring. "My wife's," he said simply. "I wore it after she died. Tied to my neck so I wouldn't forget what love had once looked like." His voice thickened. "And now when I look at you, I don't forget. But I remember differently." She shook her head, barely breathing. I can't be someone's replacement. You're not. You're the warmth that came after the longest winter. I didn't expect you. But I see you, Clara May. The girls saw you first. The barn door creaked behind them. Two small figures stood wrapped in blankets, eyes wide. We thought you'd leave us, whispered Maisie. Clara knelt, arms outstretched. They ran to her like roots to water. Rhett looked down at them, his daughters and the woman who'd never asked for their love but had earned it just the same. He knelt too. Clara, he said, low and certain, if I asked you to marry me, would it be enough to give you your name back? Or would it be too little, after all you've carried? She didn't answer with words. She took the ring and placed it on her own finger. And the snow, that had threatened to stay all season, began to melt by morning. Later that week, they stood beneath the cottonwood at the edge of the pasture. The girls held wildflowers in their hands. Clara wore a cream dress borrowed from a neighbor, and mended with her own thread. Rhett wore the stitched coat. They said their vows in silence, spoken through glances and years, and the way his hand never left hers. The town watched. Some whispered. Some wept. And in that quiet, wintry morning, a man who'd lost hope, two girls who believed in magic, and a woman who no longer begged for shelter, became a family. Because sometimes, home isn't a place. It's a person who doesn't let go when the cold tries to come back. If this story found your heart, tell us where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. It's a marvel how a tale from the Wild West still echoes down the dusty roads of the world. And if you believe in slow love, second chances, and the quiet power of belonging, like, share and subscribe. We've got more stories waiting. Just beyond the cottonwood.